Now let's start with today's story. My name is Ashton, and I come from a broken family, raised by a controlling mother and her meddlesome sisters. Melanie, the eldest, was 13 years older than me, and Anna was 10 years older. I was an unplanned child, blamed for my parents' separation when Dad left in 1977, never to return. Throughout my childhood, I faced bullying both at school and at home. All I ever wanted was a simple sign of love or acceptance from my mother, but it never came. Despite these struggles, I excelled academically, dedicating 12 years to my studies. By 1993, I found myself at Kingston University in South London, eager to escape my home life. It was there that I met Haley, her image still vivid in my mind. She was confident and beautiful, while I was shy and introverted. She was in her final year studying creative writing, while I was pursuing a master's in mechanical engineering and design. Haley effortlessly attracted attention from men, and I, too timid to approach her, never thought I'd have a chance. But to my surprise, one of her friends struck up a conversation with me at a party, which led to Haley joining us. Despite my lack of experience with women, my humility seemed to catch her attention. I finally worked up the courage to ask her out, and we began dating. I'm not ashamed to admit that she took my innocence, but after about 6 months, rumors surfaced about her being involved with other men. Though I couldn't confirm it, I hesitated to confront her. Haley had been spoiled by her parents and her sister Caroline, which put a strain on our relationship. I endured her entitled behavior and public scenes that often embarrassed me, but I was in love, a feeling I had never known before. After graduation, we both found jobs and rented a flat outside Southampton, New Hampshire, where Haley's family ties drew us. By contrast, I had long severed ties with mine. A year later, we married and welcomed Sylvie into the world, followed by Eva a couple of years after. Haley thrived in motherhood, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. Over the years, my career progressed, and I joined Walker Engineering. The higher salary and bonuses allowed us to save for a better home. But like many others, we struggled during the 2008 economic downturn. Job losses and tougher competition meant longer hours without extra pay. During this time, with both of our daughters in school full-time, I discovered Haley's affair with a man from our university. I was lost in work and unaware until it was too late. At first, I suspected a classmate who had recently moved nearby, but when I confronted Haley, she laughed off my concerns. Though I could sense something was wrong, I couldn't fully prove it. Despite my reservations, I agreed to Haley's constant pushing to buy a bigger house to reflect our status, whatever that meant. We ended up purchasing a beautiful detached house in Southampton. It was a buyer's market, so we managed to get a good deal despite the high mortgage. One decision I made, though unusual for me, was to open a new savings account in my name alone. I deposited my share of the bonuses into it, and since I handled all the finances and banking as the sole breadwinner, I doubt Haley even noticed, even when I showed her the receipts. In hindsight, this turned out to be one of the smartest things I could have done, as I wasn't sure what Haley had planned. Was she going to leave me if her old flame came back? After that incident, things seemed to settle down. I focused on supporting my daughter's education and spending time with them on weekends, taking them to dance classes, concerts, and the zoo. Haley, on the other hand, was preoccupied with her outings with her indulgent friends. I rarely socialized with other husbands, but we all seemed to share a common thread of being controlled by our wives to varying degrees. My friends even teased me with the saw under my thumb by the Rolling Stones whenever I had to cancel plans for something Haley wanted. Even at work, my colleagues often commented on my marriage, especially Haley's dominance over me. It wasn't until recently, after Eva left for university, that everything came to a head. For the first time in 18 years, it was just Haley and me. As I helped Eva settle into her new apartment, she turned to me and asked why I was still with her mother. I was taken aback when Eva, usually quiet like me, spoke up. "I heard she's fooling around with Henry Walker from your company," she said, her eyes welling with tears. It was news to me, though it didn't shock me. Over the years, I could have investigated her affairs, but I held back, fearing it would tear the family apart and drive my daughters to resent me like my sisters did my father. I tolerated her infidelity, unable to face the idea of losing everything we'd built, even though I still loved her. This revelation hit me in multiple ways. First, it made me realize how deep my daughter's resentment toward their mother ran, far deeper than I'd imagined. Second, it brought up the painful memories of my own upbringing and how those experiences shaped my weaknesses. Lastly, I realized I had become the subject of gossip and ridicule at work, especially from Henry Walker, who was not only involved with Haley but also the nephew of the company's owner. It left me feeling completely lost, unable to keep enduring this situation, particularly now that Eva knew about it. I knew I had to confront Haley. My heart raced as I sat at the kitchen table, waiting for her to return. When she finally came home, she looked at me with apathy and contempt as she unpacked her bags. I found myself struggling to speak, but eventually, I asked her about the rumors surrounding her relationship with someone else. Haley dismissed it, saying it wasn't a significant affair. I was shocked, trying to make sense of her coldness. She told me that while I had been a great provider, there were certain emotional needs she had that I couldn't fulfill. I asked, flatly, if this meant she was cheating on me. She clarified that her body was involved, not her heart or mind. Her bluntness left me speechless. Then she casually mentioned exploring relationships with younger men, which startled me even more. When I raised my voice, she warned me not to shout. Despite admitting to being involved with 2 other men, she demanded silence from me, threatening that if I didn't accept her terms, she would leave me for someone else. I stayed quiet, hoping my silence would convey my hurt. She attempted to justify her actions by claiming it was common among her friends, and even suggested that such behavior could improve a marriage. I found this despicable and self-centered, but she insisted that it was just how things were. When I suggested having another woman, she laughed it off, mocking my ability to connect with anyone else. She then boldly stated that our relationship would continue on her terms, warning me not to ruin it. As much as I hated to admit it, she was right. For 22 years, I had been unwaveringly loyal, submissive, and compliant. Now, everyone knew I was being betrayed, and my reputation at work was tarnished. The next morning, I arrived at work, only to be met by Henry Walker, the man involved with my wife. With a smug grin, he asked about my well-being, a remark that fueled my anger. I chose to remain silent as I passed my colleagues, who snickered behind my back. Even Olivia, the secretary, seemed amused by my situation. At my desk, I tried to focus, but the anger simmered beneath the surface. I decided to look into my father's background, knowing only that he was born in Cambridgeshire and left when he was 38, in 1977. I found several leads and sent out inquiries, hoping for some answers. My boss, Jack, a morally questionable man, called me into his office. He wanted to talk, and despite considering leaving due to his behavior, his high salary kept me in place. As we spoke, I learned about his own affair with Olivia, which he casually acknowledged. He then mentioned hearing rumors about my wife's infidelity, and when I responded, pointing out her involvement with Henry Walker, he laughed it off. The conversation shifted to business, with Jack warning me that if my personal issues affected the company, I might have to leave. Olivia lingered at the door, likely gathering information to gossip with her friends. As I left, I overheard more laughter, this time clearly directed at me. Returning to my office, I realized that my role at the company was pointless. I had worked hard to provide for my family, yet now I was funding Haley's betrayals. I had been content living a simple life, working hard, and putting my family first, but now I questioned my happiness. I thought about my creative work at the company, but even that felt hollow now. It was a place where I had designed many successful products, yet I felt invisible. As I clicked through emails, I was surprised to find one from Jennifer Holmes of the Cambridge Genealogy Committee. She had responded quickly to my inquiry about my father, and she mentioned a woman named Rachel Murray, who claimed to be my cousin. I eagerly replied, hoping to hear from Rachel soon. When I arrived home, Haley greeted me with a smile, but I kept my distance. After dinner, she asked if we could talk about the previous night. I told her there wasn't much to discuss. She had already made her stance clear. She tried pleading with me, acknowledging my qualities as a husband, but once again insisted that I accept her actions. I asked her how she could betray and humiliate me, but she couldn't provide an honest answer. She presented an ultimatum: accept her infidelity, or she would leave me for a younger man. I calmly brought up Henry Walker's name, saying everyone knew about their involvement. She admitted it outright, revealing that he was essentially my boss and would inherit the company. She claimed he fulfilled her needs in bed, and if I didn't comply, she would leave me for him. I sat there in silence, heartbroken and defeated. Just as I began to retreat to my study, the phone rang. It was Rachel. We spoke for an hour, and when I hung up, everything else faded from my mind. For the first time in a long time, I wore a genuine smile, as Rachel was excited about my decision to explore my father's past, and she had much to share. I learned that my mother had, in fact, forced my father out of the house, deceiving me throughout my childhood. Tragically, he passed away in 1983 from alcohol poisoning when I was just 11. My grandmother always blamed my mother for his struggles and mental state. Rachel revealed that after leaving us, my father had wanted to reconnect, but my mother had prevented him from doing so. We arranged to meet at her home in Cambridge over the weekend, and I looked forward to it, knowing it would be a good break for me. The week felt like it dragged on, with things at home remaining unchanged. At work, I was constantly ridiculed. Henry and his friends found it amusing to hang a pair of underwear on my office door, and a post-it note inside read, "Please return to your wife." I was devastated. I sat at my desk and wept, overwhelmed by the humiliation. I wanted to blame everyone but myself, but I couldn't. When Saturday finally came, I told Haley I was visiting a friend in London. She seemed indifferent, likely not caring about my absence since it would give her the freedom to do as she pleased. The trip to Cambridge was stressful, and I arrived at Rachel's house an hour later than expected. To my surprise, she greeted me with the warmest hug I'd had in years, unfazed by my delay. I met her husband, Greg, and their children, Grace and William, and we immediately delved into conversations about my father and the newfound family I was connecting with. Rachel's warmth and generosity were evident as she and Greg exchanged stories, often finishing each other's sentences. We shared more about our family history, and with the addition of my cousin David and his wife Lucy, we bonded quickly. After lunch, we went on a short trip, which gave me time to reflect. David and I discussed our lives, and for some reason, I found myself confiding in my new cousins. Their support was unwavering as they encouraged me not to tolerate my current situation any longer. Leaving Cambridge that evening, I felt a renewed sense of perspective. The lies and mistreatment I had endured had drained me, but the kindness and honesty of my new family gave me hope. I realized I needed to reclaim my happiness, not only for myself but for my daughters and the people who truly cared for me. When I returned home around 8 p.m., I found Haley getting ready to go out. I asked about her plans, and she casually told me she was going out with her friends. Catching her off guard, I mentioned her other companion, Max. She pleaded with me to stop bringing it up, showing indifference to my feelings. I urged her to stop and focus on being my wife. Instead, she dismissed my concerns, assuring me she would always be my wife and would be back by midnight. Ignoring my pleas, she continued to threaten and even tried to embrace me. I turned away, unfazed, but she grabbed her Prada handbag and headed for the door. I stood my ground and firmly told her not to go. She paused, laughing mockingly, and asked what I would do. She claimed I'd never have the courage to leave her and that I'd always be there for her. Crestfallen, I dropped my head. It was clear that I had been a fool for too long, catering to her selfishness while neglecting my own needs. It was time to end the charade and make plans for change. I wasted no time. As she was out with Henry or Max, or likely both, I began to take action. My thoughts consumed me, and I knew I needed to sever the remaining affection I had for her. I found a box containing an old family photo of my mom and sisters, the only one I had. Skeptical but determined, I cut out a picture of Haley's face and pasted it next to them. Perhaps this would help me cut the last emotional ties I had. I placed the photo on my desk around 12:45 a.m. and finalized my short-term plans, knowing it would take time to execute them. Fortunately, I had the luxury of time. Haley wasn't expecting me to leave, but by then, I had convinced myself to follow through. As I stood there, uncertain but resolute, I heard someone entering the house clumsily and peeked out the window. I watched as Henry Walker left, and as I heard her footsteps ascending the stairs, I quickly cleared my browsing history, resolving to use incognito mode from then on. After she went to the bedroom, I made my way downstairs to make coffee, reflecting on my plans for the future. Life away from this place, especially without my daughters. I found the thought somewhat bearable and decided that relocating closer to them was the best option. The next morning, I went to work, determined not to stress over things anymore. The usual jokes and laughter directed at me didn't bother me anymore. At noon, I had a bank meeting scheduled. Before it, I reviewed my finances, weighing my options. Though it was a bit of a risk, I felt that with the right moves, I could come out on top. The meeting went smoothly, and I closed my savings account, withdrawing my share from our joint account, leaving with a substantial sum. I then stopped at PC World and bought 2 digital voice recorders, a 500 gigabytes USB 3.0 tough drive, and a new hard drive for my PC. Back at the office, I spent an hour cracking Jack's password, which was ironically his wife's name and his 6-digit birthday. Once in, I downloaded all the customer files to the drive, along with the plans for the energy-efficient hydraulic pump system we had been working on. After deleting all traces from my computer, I swapped out the hard drive, packed up my bag, and reinstalled Windows. The rest of the day was spent researching competitors and browsing job listings in South London. That evening, after a quiet dinner, I retreated to my study and found an intriguing job listing. A major competitor, struggling during the financial downturn, was looking for a mechanical engineer. Although the salary was £10,000 less than my current one, it was close enough to what I wanted, so I sent my CV. To keep up appearances with Haley, I chose to sleep in our marital bed that night, even though her touch made me feel nauseous. It pleased me to feel that way. It was a step towards fully distancing myself from her. The next day, Robert Williams from Sutton Hydraulics called, surprised at my interest in leaving Walker Engineering for his smaller firm. Although he almost offered me the job on the spot, I requested an interview for the next day, which he agreed to. I had now lined up the next crucial step in my plan. With some free time, I started looking for flats near my daughter's and found one just 15 minutes away, with a viewing scheduled after my interview. The following day, I informed Jack I had to visit my daughters to sign some papers. Later that evening, I met with my longtime friends Toby and Sarah, who knew something was weighing on me. Over tea, I shared my plans to fight back, including the revelations from my meeting with my cousins about my father's expulsion by my mother and my sister's siding with her. Toby and Sarah were more surprised by my decision to fight back than by Haley's infidelity. Sarah, ever pragmatic, asked why I was leaving Haley. I explained that it was a visit to my father's grave that had truly spurred me to act. I had seen a rose image on the stone, with the words "in loving memory" followed by my father's birth date and his age at passing, coincidentally, the same age I was now. I explained how that moment made me realize I had a choice: to repeat my father's path, succumbing to alcohol and self-pity, or to fight back. I chose the latter, no longer willing to sacrifice myself, trying to be the perfect husband, enduring mistreatment. I confided in my friends, feeling vulnerable about how low I had sunk. Sarah, always practical, shared her own plans to protect herself and get back at Haley. I appreciated her insight, even though I had previously suspected an affair on her part. I told them about the separate savings account I had set up in 2008, where I deposited my bonuses and extra cash, which made it easier for me to secure a mortgage on my own. I also outlined how Toby would help transfer ownership of my house to a new company he would create, using the land registry to handle the deeds. Toby was skeptical, but I reassured him that Haley wouldn't have the means to contest it. Her religious parents, upon discovering her infidelity, would prioritize their principles over supporting her. Toby and Sarah agreed and even offered to help cover the mortgage, giving me time to delay payment. On my way home, I stopped by a Land Rover dealership and negotiated to trade in Haley's car for the latest model, terminating her payment plan for the Range Rover Sport. The dealership was more than happy to resell it. I assured the dealer that I would return for my own upgrade, confident he could make back the cost of Haley's car by reselling it as almost new. I apologized for any inconvenience, but explained that selling me a new Range Rover would more than make up for it. As I left, I grabbed a 2016 brochure, not for myself but for Haley. When I got home, she was in the lounge sipping coffee, looking pale. I removed my jacket and dropped my bag, preparing to carry out the next step of my plan. I told Haley I loved her and wanted the best for her. I pointed to the 2017 model in the brochure, announcing I'd trade her current car in for a new one. She was thrilled, not suspecting my intentions, and mentioned the only hitch was that they already had a buyer for my car. She suggested we take it to the dealership by Friday afternoon, and that I could use her car over the weekend to visit my lovers. She froze when I mentioned that last part, looking confused. I prompted her to explain, and she admitted there was nothing specific but wondered if I was still upset about our arrangement. I clarified that it wasn't our arrangement, but hers. I asked if I was supposed to just accept it, hoping for a different response, but she simply nodded, as though she had won, and said she loved me, with genuine concern in her voice. I said nothing, walking off to the kitchen. My phone rang, and I stepped out to the back garden to take the call. Toby confirmed the money had been transferred, and everything was in place for the next day. Without delay, I walked into the bank and met with the mortgage specialist. An hour later, my mortgage was paid off, and all my accounts closed. I then opened a new account at another bank, knowing I wouldn't know anything unless Haley decided to take legal action. Later, I contacted the land registry and completed the necessary online forms for Toby and Sarah's new company. Within 10 minutes, I received an email confirming the application would take 3 to 5 days to process. Once completed, I could hand over the deeds to Toby, and he would register the property under his company's name. The same day, I knocked on Jack's door to find Olivia with him as usual. I may have interrupted something, but she left, and I handed him my resignation. He asked about the document, and I told him it was my resignation, suggesting it was best I leave immediately due to the situation with our families. I added that he probably didn't want me around much longer. He was dumbfounded, but I told him I'd return on Monday to collect my things and that he shouldn't tell anyone. I casually dropped a pin, then used the opportunity to discreetly place a digital recorder in the wooden frame under his chair. Before leaving, I told him not to come crawling back when he's broke, suggesting the only thing keeping his wife with him was his money. I could tell I'd hit a nerve. Later that day, I dropped off Haley's car at the dealership, and John Reeves kindly offered me a ride home. At home that night, Haley was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes red. I asked what was wrong, and she reluctantly told me she had contracted gonorrhea. I couldn't help but laugh. She glared at me, but I told her to take her medication and get back to normal. The tension in the room was thick, but for the first time in months, I slept well that night. The next morning, I slept in the spare room and felt refreshed. I went into our bedroom and gently woke Haley, explaining I was giving her space to rest. She said she thought I found her disgusting. I stayed silent as tears streamed down her face. She admitted she had messed up and professed her love for me, wanting me to get better. Initially, I felt sympathy, but it faded faster than I expected. I realized I had lost all affection for her. I left the room without saying a word, got in my car, and drove off, feeling content. That evening, I stayed with Toby and Sarah, who hosted a dinner party with friends and colleagues. When I returned home late on Sunday morning, Haley was up doing chores. She rushed to hug me as soon as she saw me. I patted her on the back and casually suggested we arrange for the new car to arrive, offering to drop her off in town to meet her sister, who would then drive her to the dealership. I imagined her driving back in the new Range Rover, smiling as she approached me with open arms. I turned back to the kettle, pretending not to notice her throughout the day. Haley was overly affectionate, which made me uncomfortable. She kept trying to kiss or hug me, but I kept finding excuses to leave. By bedtime, I noticed she'd been crying again. Wishing her good night, she asked if I'd be sleeping with her, hoping to cuddle and hear some reassurances. Feeling nothing, I responded that it wouldn't happen until she got the all-clear from the doctor. I firmly stated that she had made her bed, and she bitterly retorted that once she was better, she could easily find a man who would want her in bed. I chuckled to myself, relieved. It had taken longer than expected, but there it was. The harshness returned. All the regrets from Friday night had disappeared, leaving behind 21 years of resentment. In the past, I might have fallen for her manipulations, but this time, I ignored her tears and went to the spare room. It was my last night in the house, and I was at peace. I was grateful for her comments because they erased any lingering doubts. As I looked at the altered photo of her and my sisters, all I felt was hatred for her. She had always been sweet when she wanted something and nasty when she didn't. The next morning, I woke up early and went about my day. Haley had an 8:30 hair appointment, so I drove her into town, knowing it might be the last time I ever saw her. I hoped it would be, though I wasn't certain. On the way, I called the mobile company and canceled both our contracts, paying the penalty on my card. I made sure the phones would stay active until 5 p.m. I then went to the office to pick up my P45, greeted by an oddly quiet atmosphere, as word of my departure had spread. I walked down the hall toward my office, passing the usual group gathered by the coffee machine. Max and Henry exchanged jokes, unaware of their involvement with my wife. I greeted them with false cheer, and when they asked about Haley, I gave a dry response, telling them she wasn't doing well, thanks to one of them giving her an unwelcome surprise. I left them stunned, and when I glanced back, their jaws had dropped. I continued to Olivia, who gave me a half smile, and it felt like I was finally earning some respect. But maybe that was just in my imagination. Jack appeared at the door as I was about to knock, and without hesitation, he told me he had what I wanted. I sat down in his office and discreetly slipped a recorder into my pocket. I knew about his usual Friday rendezvous with Olivia, and now I had it recorded. Jack asked if I had another job lined up, and I ignored him at first before replying that I didn't. He smirked, probably assuming I would come crawling back. I asked about my final month's pay and bonus, which made him burst into laughter. Olivia entered with my P45, and when she asked what was so funny, Jack explained that I had asked for my bonus. Olivia joined in on the laughter, but I started laughing too, which made them freeze. Olivia asked why I was laughing, and I responded by asking her why she let the old man take advantage of her every week. I laughed harder, and they stood there, frozen, with Olivia's eyes widening and Jack turning red with rage. He spat out insults, demanding I leave the office, or he'd have the boys drag me out. Chuckling, I grabbed my things and left, still laughing. When I got home, I unloaded the back seats of the car and began surveying the house. I gathered the things I wanted to take with me, including a few paintings, family photos, jewelry, and other personal items. Haley's wardrobe, which I had bought over the years, was all mine, so I took it too. I made sure to get the important papers, like the girls' birth certificates and my wedding certificate. I even retrieved my degree and some old mementos from the loft. After packing everything, I realized I needed a TV, so I grabbed that, along with my movie collection. The car was now full, but I decided to leave Haley's clothes behind and other things that weren't worth taking. I grabbed the best pictures of me and the girls and packed them up. I didn't feel rushed since Haley wouldn't be back until after 2 p.m. I took a moment to relax with a cup of tea, canceled our satellite, phone, and internet services, and also contacted the utilities. It would take a few days to process, but I wasn't in a hurry. I returned to the bedroom and noticed something that gave me an idea, a scary one. Haley's wedding dress, which she loved more than anything, was sitting at the top of the wardrobe in a dusty old box. I took it down along with our wedding album. I grabbed a duvet cover, gathered everything, and headed to the garden. I dumped everything into a pile, including Haley's clothes, but left her underwear untouched. I didn't want any reminders. I closed up the car and checked the time. It was 1:45 p.m. I called Robert Williams to let him know I'd drop off my P45 later and that I was eager to start fresh. At 2 p.m., I sat waiting for the call. I found some paint thinners in the garage and poured it over the wedding dress in the garden. Just as I was about to set it on fire, my phone rang. Haley's voice came through the phone, demanding to know what was going on. I responded sarcastically, asking what she meant, and she got frustrated, asking me to stop pretending. I asked her to calm down and questioned what was happening. There was silence, and I could hear her heavy breathing and her sister in the background. Haley told me she had been informed I hadn't gotten her the new car, but instead had sold hers. I teasingly mentioned that I might have forgotten to mention that. Haley began to panic, asking what was going on. I remained calm, though my heart raced, and told her that from now on, if she wanted a car, she could pay for it herself. She yelled in confusion and frustration. I confirmed that she had heard me clearly and added that I needed to clean the kitchen. She asked if it was some kind of twisted joke, but I didn't respond. She said we'd talk when she got home, clearly annoyed by what she thought was a prank. I stayed silent and ended the call amid her continued shouting. Stepping outside, I struck a match and watched as our history burned in the fire. As I walked away, I took our marriage certificate from my pocket, ripped it into pieces, and left it on the kitchen table next to a photo of us at Disneyland, a reminder of better days. I wondered if she would remember those moments fondly too. Getting into my car, I drove away, glancing back at the end of the street where I saw Haley and Jennifer rushing into the house, not sparing a glance upward. I turned off my phone, smiled to myself, and kept driving. By 4 p.m., I was in Sutton, with some time to spare. I visited a nearby phone shop to set up a new mobile contract, then stopped by the office to take care of my P45. I met Freya, my new secretary, who, unlike Olivia, showed professionalism despite her youth. Arriving at my empty flat, I made a cup of tea with a kettle borrowed from home and ordered pizza for dinner. Checking my old phone, I saw it had been disconnected. A smirk crossed my face as I imagined Haley being left without a phone too. I set up a sleeping bag in the lounge, awaiting my dinner. My furniture would arrive over the weekend, but for now, I savored the distance from Haley. I turned on my laptop, accessed recordings from Jack Walker's office, and discovered his affair with Olivia. After uploading the evidence, I made copies on USB drives addressed to Jack's wife, Margaret, and Olivia's boyfriend, Peter. I planned to mail them the next day. I called my daughter Sylvie to update her, warning her not to tell her mother where I was. Haley hadn't been in contact, which gave me a sense of relief. Over the next week, I furnished my flat and began diverting business from Walker Engineering to Sutton, where most clients preferred our services. I anticipated that Jack would soon realize why his business was struggling, but I couldn't care less. As the week passed, I was informed that Haley had moved back to her parents' home, where her infidelity was met with disapproval. She was furious with me, and oddly, I felt gratified. By the weekend, Toby and Sarah hosted another dinner party, providing a brief escape from my plans. Sunday brought promising news. After only a week on the market, I received 2 serious offers for the house, one of which I accepted immediately. I arranged for the sale to go smoothly, ensuring the girls were set up, and invested the proceeds carefully, making sure Toby was compensated and securing some cash for myself. As the week went on, Toby informed me that the sale could move quickly, and I arranged for a removal company to clear out my old home. Meanwhile, the girls had contacted their mother, who responded with increased anger and threats. She assured them the turmoil would soon be over, but I offered them comfort. On Tuesday morning, During a conversation with a new client who had recently met with Jack to discuss a contract renewal, I learned of Walker Engineering's dire situation. The client revealed that due to a loss of projects, the company had to lay off half its staff. I also heard that Mrs. Walker had decided to divorce Jack over his affair. Despite this revelation, I felt no sympathy. My mind was focused on commission checks and the future, while I was unaware of Olivia and her boyfriend's fates. I knew he had received my gift, and while I wasn't sure if Mrs. Walker had received hers, the reasons behind their upcoming divorce were all too clear. I couldn't help but wonder what Mrs. Walker's friends and family would think of her affair with an older man. I was gifted a brand new Land Rover Discovery HSE as a reward, although I had already considered treating myself to something nice. Robert and the executives were so impressed with my performance and the company's progress that they decided to present me with the car along with a substantial commission of over £30,000. As I admired the car from my office window, I was taken by surprise when a familiar Ford Focus pulled into the parking lot. It belonged to Diane H's mother, and I knew a confrontation was likely. My office phone rang, and Freya, my secretary, informed me that a woman claiming to be my wife was waiting in reception. I told her to inform the woman that I was in a meeting and would be downstairs in an hour. 3 hours later, I looked out the window and saw Haley still waiting. Sighing, I decided to leave for the night, prepared to either face her or simply drive away without her noticing. As I approached my car, I heard tires screeching, and before I knew it, Haley had blocked me in with her car. She stormed toward me, her disheveled appearance showing how distressed she was, clad in worn clothes that seemed to belong to her sister and with messy hair. "You damn idiot!" she screamed, trying to slap me but missing. Fueled by rage, she demanded retribution. I tried to calm her down, inviting her to sit in the car with me. She was clearly shocked by the sight of the new car and started expressing her financial struggles, pleading for my return. I told her that since I couldn't fulfill her needs and didn't measure up to her younger lovers, I felt redundant in her life. She then begged me to come home, saying she was willing to move past everything and forgive me. I couldn't believe my ears and asked if she was joking. She insisted she forgave me for wrecking her things and her life. I questioned her forgiveness, pointing out the cheating, the disrespect, and her nerve to claim it. I told her firmly that I would never be with her again and coldly suggested she go be with one of her lovers. She mentioned that her friends were treating her differently now that we were separated, and their husbands were questioning their fidelity. While I acknowledged some responsibility for her misfortune, I still felt sympathy for her, though I knew I had to move on. She pleaded for me to return, claiming she had nothing left, and asked about her share of the house. She also mentioned needing a divorce. I reminded her that she had never once said she loved me. She just needed me, but I didn't need her. I then revealed that I had defaulted on the mortgage and lost the house, admitting that I had lied to her. She was shocked, and I understood why she had come. I told her I wanted a divorce. She begged, claiming to love me after over 20 years together, and admitted her mistake. I told her it was a huge, unforgivable mistake and made it clear I would never return to her. She screamed and cried, filling the car with her sobs. I suggested a clean break and offered her £30,000 in cash if she agreed. Her demeanor shifted, and she became resolute. She yelled, threatening to fight me in court for everything, insisting I hadn't lost the house and that I was too smart for that. I acknowledged her point, finding myself on the defensive. I told her she wouldn't get a penny from me and that I would fight her for everything. I explained that I would move my assets around to make it difficult for her to track them, warning her that by the time her lawyer found anything, the legal bills would wipe out any gains. I gave her a choice: take the money and walk away, or face the consequences of a legal battle. Never breaking eye contact, she angrily accused me of mistreating her, then added that thanks to her, our daughters would thrive, contrasting their future with her perceived shortcomings. I told her to take the money and get out of my life. She spat back, agreeing to take the money and go ahead with the divorce. I told her I would arrange everything, and she slammed the car door shut before speeding away from the parking lot. The next day, I filed for divorce, citing infidelity. A week later, I arranged to meet Haley at the girl's apartment. Despite the sale of my house being complete, I held off on investing until the papers were signed. It was tough maintaining civility in front of the girls, but I handed Haley the cash, and she signed the papers. After bidding the girls farewell and wishing Haley luck, I prepared to leave. Suddenly, Haley burst into tears. I suspected it was more for the girls' sake than for mine. Sylvie and Eva exchanged knowing glances, and Eva mentioned seeing me next weekend at the Coldplay concert they were looking forward to. I went back into the room, where Haley was still sobbing, unnoticed by the others. It dawned on me what Eva had meant about the concert. Sylvie asked about our plans, and I said I'd check with Annie and let them know during the week. As I was leaving, ignoring Haley's shouting, I closed the door behind me, leaving it all behind. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.